The main highlight of the Realme XT is that big 64 megapixel sensor, which is a big step up from all the 48 megapixel sensors we've been seeing of late. Now, the name XT might lead you to believe that it's the successor to the Realme X or at least part of that same lineup, but it's actually positioned to be in between the Realme 5 Pro and the Realme X. So, is that 64 megapixel sensor all that it's hyped up to be? It's time to find out in our review of the Realme XT. Now, before we go ahead, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you're the first to know whenever we have a new video. First, let's talk a bit about the design. Now, on the surface, the Realme XT looks very similar to the Realme 5 Pro with some key differences. The back panel ditches the diamond pattern for multicolored streaks, which is visible when light reflects off it at certain angles. The second big change is the use of Gorilla Glass 5 for the back panel instead of polycarbonate, which doesn't scratch easily. The pearl white finish that we have looks really nice and does a good job of hiding fingerprints. The body is still built from polycarbonate, but the silver paint job gives it the appearance of aluminium. The 6.4-inch Super AMOLED Full HD Plus display on the Realme XT also has Gorilla Glass 5 for protection and an in-display fingerprint sensor, which is quick at authentication. The phone also has a dewdrop notch on the top, which houses a 16-megapixel selfie camera. This is also used for face unlock, which works very well. The buttons on the Realme XT are ergonomically placed, and we have a triple slot for 2 nano SIM cards and a micro SD card on the left side. The USB Type-C port and a headphone jack are at the bottom. The camera layout on the back is identical to the Realme 5 series. The camera module protrudes outwards quite a bit, but thankfully you get a case in the box, which helps even out that bump. Overall, the Realme XT feels premium and is comfortable to carry around, and it isn't very heavy at 183 grams. Now, the Realme XT is powered by the Snapdragon 712 SoC and is available in 3 RAM and storage configuration. We start off with 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage. Next up, we have 6GB of RAM and 64GB of storage, and the top-end variant which has 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. The phone runs on ColorOS 6.0.1, which is based on Android 9 Pie with the slightly dated July 2019 security patch. As for the Android experience itself, nothing much has changed since we reviewed the Realme 5 and even the Realme 5 Pro. The new version of the skin gets a cleaner look, and you still get a host of pre-installed apps. Now, most of the third-party ones like Facebook, UC Browser, etc. can be uninstalled. Now, we didn't encounter any ads or any spammy notifications from the default apps either. The day-to-day experience of the Realme XT isn't very different from the 5 Pro, and that's a good thing. The phone is a bit too tall for one-handed use, but you can enable one-handed mode for more convenience. The display is bright with good sunlight legibility and colors are punchy. The pre-applied screen guard is useful, but the edges don't sit flush with the sides of the display very well, so it tends to rub against your fingers when performing gestures, which can get annoying quickly. We used the 8GB RAM version of the Realme XT, which ran Android smoothly without any hiccups. Multitasking was speedy and app loading times were very quick. Heavy games also ran just fine. PUBG Mobile ran at the high preset by default and gameplay was pretty smooth. Now, the back of the phone got a little warm after extended gameplay, but not too hot. Battery drain was quite acceptable too, as even after a full 30-minute match, we noted just about a 5% drop in battery level. Audio from the bottom speaker got quite loud thanks to Dolby Atmos. The surround effect wasn't very noticeable, but it didn't sound too tinny and there was good amount of audible detail in music tracks. The Realme XT features a 4000 mAh battery which lasted for a good 20 hours and 36 minutes in our loop test. Now, with actual usage, we easily managed to go a full day with heavy use and about a day and a half with medium to light usage. It also supports Whoop fast charging, which charges the phone up to 88% in an hour. We now come to the main reason one would pick the Realme XT over, say, the Realme 5 Pro or even the Realme X, that 64 megapixel sensor. This is the first phone in India to feature Samsung's GW1 image sensor, which boasts of a 1x1.72-inch sensor and 4-in-1 pixel binning, which saves a 16 megapixel resulting image. You can shoot at the full 64 megapixel resolution too if needed. Now, we were expecting some new additions to the camera app considering the primary focus of this phone. However, some basic functions like the ability to adjust the background blur when shooting in portrait mode or even the ability to record video using the wide-angle camera are still absent. The main 64 megapixel sensor captures detailed pixel bin shots. HDR works well, colors have good saturation and autofocus is quick. Distant objects and landscapes look good too, although a little over-sharpened. Shooting at the full 64 megapixel resolution allows you to zoom in really close to objects, and it's able to resolve very good detail. Now, compared to the pixel binned images, the full resolution photos captured using the XT have a slightly cooler color tone and there's slightly less noise in the shadows, but the textures are also a little softer. In low light, the sensor captures good colors and details are fairly good. Slight grain is visible in shadow regions, but this is only noticeable when you zoom in all the way. Now, comparing the full 64 megapixel resolution images from the XT to competing 48 megapixel camera phones, the former does have a slight edge, as not only you get a higher degree of zoom due to the extra resolution, but details are also a bit more legible. Close-ups have very good detail and there's a good helping of natural bokeh. Focusing speed is quick and the built-in AI does a good job at identifying objects. In low light, the focus speed continues to be quick and the XT manages good details and colors with barely any visible noise. The camera app tends to boost the colors a bit at times, which can make the scene or object look a little too vivid and dramatic, but it's not always the most accurate representation. Now, the other cameras are the same as what we've seen before in the Realme 5 Pro. The 8 megapixel wide-angle camera lets you capture interesting perspectives. Here, details are decent in daylight if you don't mind the slight skewing of objects on the sides of the frame, but colors are a bit weak. The 2 megapixel macro camera is also useful when shooting extreme close-ups, but it's best done with ample light around. The Realme XT also does a good job when using portrait mode. Edge detection is good thanks to the dedicated 2 megapixel depth sensor and details are crisp. The XT also has nightscape feature which helps brighten low light shots. Here the camera crops the frame a little to compensate for handshakes, but the end result is a brighter image. Now, finer textures are suppressed a bit in the attempt to reduce noise, which can make the surface of objects look a little flat, but as long as you're not going to crop the image too much, you should be okay. The 16 megapixel front camera on the XT does a decent job with selfies. The beauty mode isn't too aggressive and HDR works well. In low light, the phone captures usable images with decent skin tones. There's a portrait mode here too, which is okay but not great. Just like the 5 Pro, the videos from the selfie camera are also stabilized at 1080p. Coming to the rear cameras, video recording tops out at 4K resolution at 30 fps, but once again without any stabilization. Image quality is good, but the colors are slightly boosted here. Low light video at 4K needs a bit of work as there's some visible purplish tint at the bottom left corner. Image quality is a lot better at 1080p resolution as colors aren't boosted too much and stabilization works well in daylight. In low light, the electronic stabilization causes some mild jitter in the video when you move about, but the image isn't too noisy. The Realme XT is yet another solid addition to the company's smartphone lineup, and now buyers have even more choice in this segment. The Realme 5 Pro and the Realme XT are very close in terms of specifications and features, and between the two, we are inclined to recommend the XT if budget permits. With it, you get the newer higher resolution sensor and a glass back, which makes it feel a bit more premium. If you absolutely hate display notches and want a high-end look, then the Realme X is probably the better option. The Realme XT packs in a lot of features for the price, although having said that, we would have preferred a slightly more feature-rich camera app, and 4K video recording in low light still needs a bit of work. But other than this, there's very little to complain about. So thanks for watching our review of the Realme XT, and for all things tech, log on to gadgets360.com.